Everyone laughed at the cleaning lady who applied to be a translator. But when she answered a call from an Italian billionaire, everyone in the office was shocked. Before we start the story, leave in the comments which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story, everyone. The phone was going to ring in exactly 2 minutes, and the official translator for Westbrook and Associates was in the executive bathroom, clinging to the toilet. Rachel Holloway knew this because she had just cleaned that bathroom and seen the man rushing in. "Shrimp?" she muttered to herself, pushing the cleaning cart down the 32nd floor hallway. "I'd bet my paycheck it was the shrimp from the executive lunch." She was right, she always was, but nobody ever asked the mop lady for her opinion. In the main conference room, chaos had a name: emergency meeting. 15 executives in imported suits were crammed around a mahogany table, sweating in their starched collars. Julian Westbrook, the 37-year-old CEO, who looked like he'd been born wearing an Italian suit, paced back and forth like a caged lion. A very well-dressed lion. A lion who clearly hadn't slept in the last 48 hours. "Where's Richardson?" he asked for the 10th time. "Gastrointestinal indisposition," his assistant replied, using the technical term for trying not to fall apart in the bathroom. "We have the most important call of the year in." Julian looked at his watch. 90 seconds, and our only Italian translator is indisposed. Wonderful. Julian rubbed his face with both hands. Simply wonderful. "Does anyone here speak Italian?" Silence. One of the executives raised his hand timidly. "I know how to order pizza in Italian. Henderson, if you say una pizza margherita to the billionaire who's about to call, I swear I—" Julian didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Rachel stopped her cart outside the glass door. She shouldn't have been there. Technically, she should have been on the 28th floor, cleaning the copy room. But the elevator was broken. She had taken the stairs, and now she was listening to 15 adults panicking because nobody knew how to speak Italian. How ironic, she thought. I spent 3 years studying on my own, spent every spare penny on books and online courses, watched 200 Italian movies without subtitles, and these people can't even— 60 seconds, someone shouted. Julian let out a frustrated exclamation that Rachel pretended not to hear. She was good at pretending. Years of practice. Call the translation agency. Nobody's answering. Then call another agency. We've already tried 7. Someone in this building must speak Italian. We have 300 employees. The conference room door was slightly open. Rachel saw, through the glass, the black shiny phone in the center of the table. The phone that was going to ring any moment. The phone that represented a $50 million contract with the Benedetti conglomerate. She knew the details. Not because anyone had told her, but because executives talked as if cleaning ladies were furniture. Invisible. Unable to understand, she knew more about that company's business than half the people in that room. "It's none of your business," said the sensible voice in her head. "You clean floors. That's your job. Push the cart and leave." 40 seconds. Rachel's heart pounded in her ears. She looked at her hands. Yellow rubber gloves, short nails, calluses from years of holding mops and buckets. Cleaning lady hands. Hands that also turned pages of Italian grammar every night. Hands that wrote essays in perfect Italian that nobody would ever read. Hands that— "Leave, Rachel, it's not your problem." 30 seconds. She saw Julian Westbrook loosen his tie. Saw the assistant bite her lip. Saw 15 people who made in 1 week what she made in a year, completely paralyzed. And then before the sensible voice could stop her, Rachel Holloway did the craziest thing of her life. She pushed open the glass door. 15 heads turned in her direction. 15 expressions went from panic to confusion to something Rachel knew all too well. Contempt. "Excuse me," she said, hearing her own voice as if it came from far away. "I speak Italian." Silence. Not the respectful silence that comes before a solution. The other kind. The silence that comes before collective laughter. And it came. First it was a snort from the gray-haired man near the window, then a poorly disguised giggle from the woman with glasses in the corner. Within 3 seconds, half the room was exchanging looks that said everything their mouths didn't need to say. "Dear," the woman with glasses finally spoke, with that sweet voice cruel people use when they want to seem kind, We need a professional translator, not someone who knows how to say hello and thank you in Italian. More laughter. Whispers. Someone muttered something about the cleaning lady and social media that Rachel pretended not to hear. I didn't learn on social media, she said, keeping her voice steady. I'm self-taught. 3 years of study, complete fluency in conversation and business writing. Self-taught? The gray-haired man raised an eyebrow so thick it looked like a caterpillar. And do you have certification? Any diploma? No, sir. But Then thank you very much for the offer. He turned back to look at the phone. You can go back to your work. The last word came loaded with something heavy, something that said, you don't belong here. Rachel felt her face grow hot, not from shame, from something else. 20 seconds. Julian Westbrook hadn't laughed. Rachel noticed that. He was standing still, arms crossed, looking at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. Calculating, measuring. What's your name? He asked. Rachel Holloway. How long have you worked here, Rachel? 4 years, sir. And do you really speak Italian? Real Italian, not tourist Italian? She swallowed hard. Rachel took a deep breath and responded in fluent Italian without hesitation. Yes, sir, I speak Italian fluently. I studied on my own for 3 years, every night after work. I don't have diplomas because I can't afford them, but I can translate any business document and conduct any negotiation. The room went silent, not the mocking silence from before. Another kind. The kind that happens when arrogant people realize they may have made a colossal error in judgment. The gray-haired man blinked 3 times in a row, as if he were trying to reboot his own brain. The woman with glasses left her mouth hanging open in a not very elegant way. Julian slowly uncrossed his arms. 15 seconds. If this goes wrong, he said, his voice low and controlled, you lose your job. Understood? Rachel felt her stomach sink. 4 years of work, rent to pay, bills, the entire life she had built so carefully, hanging on a single phone call. What are you doing? Screamed the sensible voice. Go back to the cart. Apologize. Pretend this never happened. But Rachel's feet didn't move. Understood, sir. 10 seconds. Julian pointed to the chair next to the phone, the chair that was normally occupied by Mr. Richardson, with his framed diploma and his 30 years of experience. Rachel walked over there. She felt the stares burning her back. Heard one last whisper. This is going to be a disaster. She sat down. 5 seconds. The little girl in the corner of the room. Rachel only now noticed her, looked up from her drawing notebook. Lily Westbrook, 7 years old, blonde hair, enormous eyes. The CEO's daughter who spent her days there because she had nowhere else to be. Lily looked at Rachel and smiled. A small smile, almost invisible. The kind of smile ignored children give when they recognize another ignored person. The phone started ringing. 15 executives held their breath. Julian Westbrook closed his eyes for a second, like someone saying one last silent prayer. Rachel reached for the phone. I can do this, she said, more to herself than to anyone else in the room. Rachel's fingers touched the phone at the exact moment the third ring began. 15 executives forgot how to breathe, and then it happened. And she answered. Good afternoon, this is Westbrook and Associates, Rachel said in fluent Italian, with a naturalness that made 3 people choke at the same time. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with? On the other end of the line, a deep, hoarse voice responded. Marco Benedetti. 72 years old, owner of a conglomerate worth more than the GDP of some small countries. And, according to rumors, a man who hated wasting time. Finally, someone who speaks my language properly. The billionaire responded in Italian, and Rachel could swear he was smiling. The last person who tried to talk to me pronounced buongiorno like they were having a stroke. Rachel held back a laugh. I apologize for the previous inconvenience, Mr. Benedetti. How can I help you today? Julian Westbrook was standing next to the table, so still he looked like he'd been turned into a statue. His eyes went from Rachel to the phone, from the phone to Rachel, as if he were watching a tennis match in slow motion. What is she saying? He whispered to his assistant. I have no idea, she whispered back. I took Spanish in high school. Does that help? Not at all. On the other side of the room, the man with caterpillar eyebrows had his mouth so wide open that a family of birds could nest there. The woman with glasses who had called Rachel dear had an expression that suggested she had just discovered that the earth was flat, or round. depending on what she believed before. Rachel continued the conversation, mentally translating every phrase that Julian would need to know. "Mr. Westbrook," she said in English, covering the phone's mouthpiece, "Mr. Benedetti wants to confirm the terms of Clause 7. He's concerned about the delivery deadline." Julian blinked. "Tell him we can adjust to 90 days. Rachel returned to Italian, conveying the message with the same elegance as before. Benedetti made a counteroffer. Rachel translated. Julian responded. Rachel translated again. It was like watching a dance. A very expensive dance, where each wrong step would cost millions. "He's asking for exclusivity for 18 months, Rachel informed. 12, Julian responded without hesitation. "He says 15 is the minimum. 13. "He's laughing, said he likes you. 14 and we close." Julian looked at Rachel as if she had just turned water into wine. "Done." Rachel returned to the phone and finalized the terms in Italian. Her voice was calm, professional, without a single trace of nervousness. As if she did this every day. As if she hadn't been wearing yellow rubber gloves 2 hours ago. Benedetti asked one last question. Rachel answered. He laughed, a genuine, warm laugh. "My dear," he said in Italian, "you're much better than the other translator. That man translated like he was reading a Blender instruction manual." Rachel smiled. "Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure." "The pleasure was mine. Tell your boss he's lucky to have you." The line went silent. Rachel placed the phone back on the hook. The silence that followed was so deep she could hear the air conditioning humming 3 floors up. Then Julian Westbrook let out the breath he'd been holding. "Did we close?" Rachel nodded. "We closed." The room remained silent for 3 more seconds, and then it exploded. Not in applause, not in celebration, in pure and absolute shock. "What do you mean we closed?" the man with eyebrows asked, as if the word had lost its meaning. She really speaks Italian?" The woman with glasses muttered to no one in particular. 50 million, someone whispered. $50 million. The cleaning lady just closed $50 million. Julian's assistant dropped a pen. The sound seemed like a gunshot in the room's silence. Rachel stood up from the chair slowly. Her legs trembled a little, but she didn't let it show. 4 years of practicing invisibility had its advantages. "If you'll excuse me," she said, her voice perfectly controlled, "I still have the 19th floor to clean." Nobody answered. Nobody could. Rachel began walking toward the door. Each step seemed to echo on the marble like a small earthquake. She passed by the man with eyebrows who still hadn't closed his mouth. Passed by the woman with glasses who seemed to be re-evaluating all the life choices that had led her to that moment. Passed by Julian Westbrook, who watched her with an expression she couldn't decipher. And then, in the corner of the room, something happened. A small sound, almost imperceptible. Applause. Rachel stopped. Lily Westbrook, 7 years old, blonde hair, enormous eyes, was clapping. Slowly, alone, with a smile on her face that lit up the entire room. Nobody else moved. But Lily continued. Clap, clap, clap. Rachel felt something tighten in her chest, something that had no name, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She looked at the little girl. Lily looked back and waved. The same small wave from before. The wave of someone who recognizes another invisible person. Rachel waved back. Then she turned her back and left the conference room. The cleaning cart was still in the hallway, exactly where she had left it. The cleaning products, the cloths, the gray uniform. Nothing had changed, and at the same time, everything had changed. Rachel pushed the cart toward the elevator. Her hands were still shaking. Her heart was still beating too fast. But for the first time in 4 years, she was smiling. Behind her, in the conference room, 15 executives were still trying to process what had just happened. And Julian Westbrook, CEO of Westbrook & Associates, stood staring at the door through which the cleaning lady had left, thinking. The next morning, Rachel arrived at work expecting everything to return to normal. She was wrong. Julian Westbrook's assistant intercepted her before she could even touch the cleaning cart. The woman appeared out of nowhere, like a high-heeled ninja, and snatched the glass cleaner spray from Rachel's hands without any ceremony. "Mr. Westbrook wants to see you," she said, breathless. "Now. Immediately. Yesterday, if possible. But now." And that's how Rachel found herself standing at the door of the CEO's office, still trying to process what was happening. Julian Westbrook was behind the desk, holding a white envelope with both hands. His fingers drummed on the paper as if he didn't know exactly what to do with it. The envelope was thick and smelled of corporate embarrassment. "Sit down," Julian said, pointing to the leather chair in front of the desk. "I'm fine standing, sir. Please, sit down." Rachel sat. The chair was absurdly comfortable, the kind of comfort that made you question all your furniture choices in life. Julian remained standing, pacing back and forth. The envelope went back and forth between his hands like a hot potato. "So," he began. "So," she repeated. Silence. Julian cleared his throat. "Yesterday was interesting." "It was, sir. You saved a $50 million contract. Technically, I only translated. You closed the contract." Julian stopped walking, looked at her with an expression that mixed surprise and something like respect. "Are you always like this?" "Like what, sir?" "Modest." Rachel considered the question for a moment. "It's not modesty, it's accuracy. I spoke Italian, you negotiated. The credit is shared." Julian let out a short laugh. It seemed like he hadn't laughed in weeks, maybe months. "Right, well," he finally stopped in front of her and extended the envelope. "This is for you." Rachel took the envelope slowly, opened it carefully. $50 bills stared back at her. $5,000. She stared at the money for 3 seconds, then 4, then 5. "It's a thank you," Julian explained, clearly uncomfortable with the silence. "For what you did yesterday. The company is grateful. I'm grateful." Rachel kept looking at the bills. $5,000. Several months' rent, the overdue bills. The advanced Italian course she wanted to take, an emergency fund she never had. $5,000 solved a lot, and at the same time, it solved nothing. "Thank you, Mr. Westbrook," she said, closing the envelope. "It's very generous. It's the least I could do." Rachel waited for him to say something else, waited for the word promotion, or opportunity, or we want to use your talent in another position. The seconds passed. Julian went back behind the desk, sat in the executive chair, picked up a pen. "That was all," he said without looking at her. "You can go back to work." Rachel felt something wither inside her chest, something small and hopeful that had started to sprout the night before. "Of course, sir." She stood up. The leather chair sighed as she left. "Mr. Westbrook?" He looked up. "Yes?" Rachel opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Ask about the promotion. Ask if there's an opening. Ask if you can be more than a cleaning lady who happens to speak Italian." But the words didn't come out, because she knew the answer, knew it before she even entered that room. "Nothing," she said. "Thank you for the envelope." Julian nodded and returned to his papers. Rachel left the room. In the hallway, the assistant was waiting for her, leaning against the wall, biting a nail with a poorly disguised expression of curiosity. "So," she asked, almost jumping. "What did he want? Is he going to promote you? Give you an office? A nameplate?" Rachel held up the envelope. "Tip. Tip, $5,000 for saving $50 million. The assistant's eyes widened, then narrowed, doing mental calculations. Her lips moved as she counted on her fingers like a third grader. "Wait, that's," she muttered, "0.01%. You're great at math. I know, I almost failed 3 times. The assistant crossed her arms and huffed. "You know what he gave me last Christmas? A card." "A card, Rachel. It didn't even have an envelope." "At least you got a card. It was addressed to Team." She made air quotes with her fingers. "Team. He didn't even remember my name. I've worked here for 2 years. 2 years, Rachel." "What's your name again?" The assistant opened her mouth to answer, then stopped, narrowed her eyes. "That was a joke, right?" Rachel gave a half smile. "Maybe." "Brenda. My name is Brenda, and you're the first person on this floor who asked." She tilted her head. "Well, you didn't really ask, but it almost counts." Rachel laughed. For the first time that morning, she really laughed. "We're 2 invisible people then, Brenda." Brenda shrugged, but there was a smile there. "At least you speak Italian. I only know how to complain in English." She pushed off from the wall. "But hey, if you need someone to complain with, let me know. I'm a specialist." "I'll remember that." Rachel walked to the cleaning cart. It remained in the same place, the same products, the same cloths, the same gray uniform. She tucked the envelope into her apron pocket, next to the Italian notebook that nobody knew existed. $5,000, she thought. It's more than I've received in any bonus. It's more than I expected to receive. But it wasn't what she wanted. What she wanted didn't fit in an envelope. She pushed the cart toward the elevator. The 19th floor still needed to be cleaned. The 18th floor bathrooms were waiting. The routine continued. She pressed the elevator button. "Hey!" Rachel turned around. Lily Westbrook was running down the hallway, her drawing notebook swinging in her hand. Her shoes made too much noise on the marble floor, and at least 3 executives looked on with disapproval. She didn't seem to notice or care. "Hi," Lily said, stopping in front of Rachel, breathless. "Hi," Rachel responded, surprised. "You were really nice yesterday, on the phone." "Thank you, Lily. My dad said you saved the company." Rachel smiled. "Your dad is exaggerating." "He always exaggerates." Lily tilted her head. "Are you leaving?" "No, I'm just going to clean other floors." "Oh," the girl seemed relieved. "So you're coming back?" "I am. I always come back." Lily smiled. A real smile, not the polite smile children learn to give adults. "Good, I don't like it when people leave." Something in her voice made Rachel pause, something too sad for a 7-year-old girl. "I'm not leaving, Lily," Rachel said, crouching down to be at her height. "I promise." Lily nodded. Then she extended her hand, showing a folded piece of paper. "This is for you." Rachel took the paper, unfolded it. It was a drawing, done with colored pencils. A woman in a gray uniform, holding a phone. Next to it, crooked letters said, "The lady who speaks beautifully." Rachel felt her eyes burn. "Lily, this is... Do you like it? It's the most beautiful gift I've ever received." Lily smiled again. Then she ran off down the hallway as fast as she had arrived. Rachel stood there holding the drawing. In her pocket, $5,000. In her hand, something priceless. The elevator arrived with a soft ding. Rachel stepped in, still looking at the drawing, and for the first time she realized that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't so invisible after all. At least not to an assistant named Brenda, whom nobody knew, and to a little 7-year-old girl who drew small people in enormous buildings. In the days that followed, Rachel began to notice something that no one else seemed to notice. Lily Westbrook was a child made of silence. Not the noisy silence of shy children who hide behind their parents' legs and peek at the world with curiosity. It was another kind. The silence of someone who learned that making noise doesn't help at all. Rachel watched her from afar while cleaning the 32nd floor. Lily always stayed in the same corner of the executive waiting area, curled up in a leather armchair that seemed to swallow her small body. The drawing notebook on her lap, the colored pencils scattered around. Always alone. Always quiet. Always invisible. Like me, Rachel thought, and that thought hurt more than it should. That Thursday, Rachel approached a little closer than normal. Pretended to clean the coffee table for the 3rd time while peeking at Lily's drawings. Buildings. Dozens of buildings. Enormous, gray skyscrapers with little square windows that looked like empty eyes, and in the middle of each drawing, a tiny person, so small they almost disappeared among the constructions. "Do you like buildings?" Rachel asked, trying to sound casual. Lily looked up, surprised, as if she didn't expect anyone to talk to her. "They're the buildings I see from my dad's window." "And the tiny person?" Lily looked at the drawing, then at Rachel, then at the drawing again. "That's me." Rachel felt her chest tighten. "You draw yourself very tiny." "It's because I am small." Lily shrugged. "And the buildings are big, and everyone here is big, except me." Rachel knelt down beside the armchair, pretending to pick up a pencil that had fallen on the floor. "You know something? I also feel small sometimes." Lily tilted her head. "But you're an adult. Adults also feel small, Lily, especially in big buildings like this one." The girl seemed to consider this information for a moment. Then she narrowed her eyes. "Do you live here?" Rachel almost laughed. "What do you mean?" "In the building. Do you live here? Because you're always here. In the morning, in the afternoon, sometimes at night." Lily counted on her fingers. "You're here more than the coffee lady, and more than the man who yells on the phone, and more than—" "I don't live here, Lily." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "Then where do you sleep?" "In Brooklyn. In an apartment." "Is it big?" Rachel thought about her 40-square-meter studio. About the bed that was 2 steps from the stove. About the bathroom where she needed to close the door to be able to sit on the toilet. "It's cozy." "Cozy means small, right?" Rachel really laughed this time. "You're too smart for your own good." Lily smiled. A small smile, but real. "My old nanny used to say that before she left." "Why did she leave?" "Everyone leaves." Lily looked back at the drawing. "Except Dad. But Dad is never really here. His body is, but his head is on the phone. Rachel didn't know what to say, because Lily was 7 years old and had just summarized adult loneliness better than any poet. At that moment, Julian's office door opened. He came out walking fast, cell phone glued to his ear, briefcase in hand, eyes focused on some distant point. He walked right past Lily, didn't even look at her. "Dad?" Lily called, her voice low. Julian kept walking, talking on the phone, gesturing. "Dad?" He turned the corner and disappeared. Lily looked back at the drawing, said nothing, didn't cry, just picked up the gray pencil and started drawing another building. Rachel stood there, the cleaning cloth forgotten in her hand, feeling a mixture of sadness and anger she didn't quite know where to place. He didn't even look at her. Walked right past, as if she were part of the furniture. That night, on the way back to Brooklyn, Rachel stopped at a stationery store, spent $20 she didn't have on a pack of professional colored pencils. The good ones, the ones that had 72 different colors. The next day, she left the pack on top of Lily's armchair, along with a folded note. For the artist of big buildings, from someone who is also small sometimes. She didn't sign it. She didn't need to. From afar, pretending to clean the same window for the 4th time, Rachel saw Lily find the gift. Saw the girl open the pack slowly, as if it were a treasure. Saw her eyes widen as she counted the colors. 72. Lily looked around, searching for who had left it. Her eyes met Rachel's. Rachel waved discreetly. Lily waved back and smiled. A huge smile this time. The kind of smile children give when someone finally sees them. In the following days, Rachel started leaving more things. A little note on Monday. Draw something colorful today. A star-shaped eraser on Tuesday. To erase only mistakes, never dreams. A shiny sticker on Wednesday. Small people can shine bright. Lily kept everything in a shoebox she carried in her backpack. A treasure box. Treasures from someone who finally saw her. And meanwhile, Julian Westbrook continued walking past his daughter every day. Cell phone to his ear, eyes on the horizon, mind on another planet. He didn't see the new drawings Lily made, didn't see the vibrant colors that had replaced the gray, didn't see the little notes his daughter read and reread before putting away, didn't see anything. Because Julian Westbrook was a man who looked forward. Always forward. To the next contract, the next meeting, the next goal. He never looked down. And it was down there, in the leather armchair, that his daughter was disappearing. On Friday, Rachel left a different note. Today, draw someone you wish would see you. At the end of the shift, when she went to clean the waiting area, Rachel found the drawing on top of the cart. There were 2 people. One tall in a gray uniform, one small with blonde hair, and underneath in crooked letters, Lily had written, "Me and my friend Rachel." Rachel tucked the drawing into her apron pocket and promised herself that, one way or another, she was going to make Julian Westbrook open his eyes. Before it was too late. Lily's drawing was still in Rachel's apron pocket when fate decided to play a trick. Or rather, when Julian Westbrook decided to enter the break room at 6:47 in the morning, thinking he was completely alone on the floor. Rachel had her back turned, cleaning the counter, when she heard the door open. She didn't turn around. She was used to being invisible. People came in, got coffee, left. Nobody looked at the woman in the gray uniform scrubbing the sink. But this time was different. "No, Henderson. I don't care what the lawyer said." Julian was talking on the phone, his voice echoing in the empty break room. "Tell them that reviewing the contract is not optional. It's mandatory. It's fundamental. It's absolutely." He stopped walking, because he had just noticed he wasn't alone. And because Rachel had chosen exactly that moment to turn around. What happened next became legend on the 32nd floor. Julian got startled. His body gave an involuntary jump. The cell phone slipped from one hand, the coffee cup slipped from the other, and for one glorious moment, the 3 objects, phone, cup, and the CEO's dignity, flew in slow motion through the air. The phone hit the floor with a crack. The cup shattered into pieces. The coffee formed a brown puddle that spread across the floor like a small sea of caffeine, and Julian Westbrook, CEO of Westbrook & Associates, stood in the middle of it all, mouth open and arms still suspended in the air. Rachel blinked. "Good morning, Mr. Westbrook," he blinked back. You were there." "I was there." "The whole time?" "The whole time." Julian looked at the floor, at the coffee, at the cup shards. At the cell phone that was still emitting Henderson's confused voice asking, "Sir, sir, are you there?" Then he looked at Rachel. "This is embarrassing?" "I was going to say unexpected. Embarrassing is more accurate." Julian opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. He looked like a fish out of water, a very well-dressed fish in an Italian suit and imported shoes, but still a fish. Rachel grabbed the paper towel roll from the counter and held it out to him. "It happens." "What?" "Spilling coffee, breaking cups, losing your composure in front of the cleaning crew." She shrugged. "It happens." Julian took the paper towel, still looking dazed. "You're not going to tell anyone?" "Tell them what?" That the CEO jumped in fright, screamed like a horror movie character, and destroyed an imported cup. Silence. And then, against all logic and all rules of corporate hierarchy, Julian Westbrook laughed. It wasn't a polite laugh. It wasn't the controlled laugh he gave in board meetings. It was a real laugh, the kind that escapes before you can stop it. "I didn't scream," he said, still laughing. "Sir, with all due respect, it was a scream." It was a exclamation of surprise. It was a high-pitched scream, almost ultrasonic. I think the dogs in the neighborhood heard it. Julian shook his head, but the smile was still there. "Are you always like this?" "Like what?" "Honest." Rachel considered the question. "Only with people who just screamed in front of me." "I didn't scream." "Of course not, sir." Julian bent down to pick up the cup shards, but Rachel was faster. "Let me handle it," she said, already with the dustpan in hand. "It's literally my job. I can help." "Mr. Westbrook, no offense, but you're wearing a suit, and that suit looks like it came from a Fifth Avenue display window. You know about suits?" "No, but I know about coffee stains, and this one is going to be hard to get out." Julian looked at his own sleeve. A brown drop had splattered on the white shirt cuff. "Oh no. Oh yes." He rubbed the fabric with the paper towel, only making it worse. Rachel sighed. "Cold water. Not hot. And don't rub, press." Julian stopped and looked at her. "How do you know that?" "Sir, I've been cleaning this building for 4 years. I've seen stains that would make a scientist cry. Coffee is easy." He laughed again. This time it was softer, more tired. "It's been a while since I laughed like this," he admitted, almost to himself. Rachel stopped sweeping for a second. "It's been a while since you stopped to have coffee in peace too, I bet." Julian didn't respond. But the expression on his face said everything. He leaned against the counter, looking at the cracked phone on the floor. Henderson was still there, shouting, "Sir, did the call drop?" "I should answer that," Julian said. "You should." He didn't move. "Your daughter draws very well," Rachel said, without thinking. Julian looked up. "You saw Lily's drawings?" "Sometimes I clean near the waiting area. She stays there drawing." "Yeah, she likes to draw." Julian ran his hand through his hair. "It's her way of passing the time, I guess. She draws buildings, does she?" "Big buildings, with small people." Something changed in Julian's face. A shadow, a doubt. "Small people?" "Yeah, one person. Always the same one. Very tiny in the middle of the buildings." Julian was silent for a long moment. "I didn't know that. Maybe you should look at her drawings." The cell phone kept shouting on the floor. Henderson was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Julian finally bent down and picked up the device. "Henderson, I'll call back in 5 minutes," he said, and hung up. Then he looked at Rachel. "Thanked you." "For what?" "For not telling about the scream." "What scream, sir?" Julian smiled. A small smile, but real. Then he left the break room, leaving Rachel alone with the coffee puddle and a question that wouldn't go away. She finished cleaning, put away the products in the cart, and headed to the next floor. But when she passed by the waiting area, she stopped. Julian was there, sitting in the armchair next to Lily, the cell phone on the table. Turned off. He was holding one of the drawings. His face looked strange, pale. Lily looked at her father with wide eyes, waiting, and then Julian turned the drawing over. Rachel saw what was there, a small person, alone, on top of an enormous building, and underneath, in a child's crooked letters, a phrase, "Where is Mommy?" Rachel didn't know what had happened after Julian saw that drawing. But the next morning, something was different. The CEO arrived at the office with deep bags under his eyes, his hair less neat than usual, and an expression Rachel knew well. The expression of someone who spent the entire night thinking about things they would have preferred to ignore. Lily was in her usual corner, drawing. But this time, Julian stopped. looked at her for 3 whole seconds before heading to his office. 3 seconds. It was a start, but Rachel knew it wasn't enough. And that's when she decided to become a fairy godmother. A fairy godmother in a gray uniform, cleaning cart, and 0 magical powers. Just creativity. The first coincidence happened on Tuesday. Rachel was cleaning Julian's office when she saw the wall clock, digital. Precise, synchronized with the atomic time from Washington. She looked around. Nobody. She set it forward 15 minutes. On Wednesday, Julian arrived at the office huffing. "Brenda," he shouted to his assistant. "What time is it?" Brenda looked at her own watch. 8:15, sir." 8:15. Julian looked at the office clock. "But that says 8:30. Strange. Strange. I left home running, almost ran over a pizza delivery guy. A man cursed at me in 3 languages. Brenda held back a smile. "Maybe the clock is malfunctioning, sir. It's a digital clock, synchronized by satellite. How can it be wrong?" Mysteries of modern technology. Julian rubbed his face, frustrated, but since he had arrived early, he sat in the waiting area to have coffee, next to Lily, who showed him a drawing of a purple cat with wings. Rachel watched from afar, pretending to clean the same window for the 6th time. 15 minutes. That's all she needed to create. The second coincidence came on Thursday. Julian's cell phone had the terrible habit of staying on his desk all day, screaming notifications every 30 seconds. The man was unable to ignore a single message, so Rachel decided to help. When Julian left for a quick meeting, she entered the office to clean. The phone was there, shining like a little demon of corporate anxiety. Rachel picked it up carefully and put it inside the supply closet drawer. The drawer nobody had opened in months, the drawer that probably had cobwebs and forgotten dreams of former interns. 2 hours later, Julian was going crazy. "Brenda, have you seen my cell phone?" "No, sir. I left it on top of the desk. Maybe it fell?" "Fell where?" "Into the dimensional black hole that apparently exists in my office." Brenda shrugged. "It happens. It happens. It happens." Julian ran his hands through his hair, making it even messier. "First the clock goes crazy, now the phone disappears. What's next? The chair's going to grow legs and walk away?" "I wouldn't rule it out, sir." Julian looked at her suspiciously, but said nothing. Without a phone, he had no choice. He left the office, wandered the floor, and ended up, as if by chance, in the waiting area, where Lily was drawing. "Dad," she said, surprised. "Aren't you working?" "I'm taking a break." "A break?" Lily's eyes widened as if he had said he was going to fly to the moon. "You never take breaks." "Well," Julian sat next to her. "What are you drawing?" "A mermaid, but she has robot legs." "Why?" "Because mermaids can't walk, but robots can, so she's both things." Julian looked at the drawing for a long moment. "That's actually very smart," Lily smiled. A huge smile. Rachel, passing through the hallway with the cart, saw the scene and felt her chest warm. The third coincidence was the boldest. On Friday, Rachel left one of Lily's drawings right in the center of Julian's desk. A drawing the girl had made the day before. A man in a suit, a girl with blonde hair, and the words, "Me and Daddy," in colorful letters. When Julian entered the office and saw the drawing, he stopped, stared at it for a while. Then, instead of throwing it in a drawer or ignoring it, he grabbed tape and stuck the drawing on the wall behind the desk. Rachel saw this from the doorway, pretending to look for a cleaning product that didn't exist. But Julian also saw Rachel, and this time he didn't look away. "You," he said. Rachel froze. "Me? You're everywhere." "I clean the entire building, sir. It's part of the job." "That's not it." Julian stood up slowly. "My clock goes crazy. My cell phone disappears. My daughter's drawings appear on my desk. And you're always—" Rachel kept her expression neutral. "Coincidence. A lot of coincidence. The universe is mysterious, Mr. Westbrook." Julian narrowed his eyes. "You're doing something." "Me?" Rachel put her hand on her chest, feigning offense. "Sir, I'm a simple cleaning employee. I barely know how to use my own cell phone. Imagine sabotaging yours." Julian kept looking at her. Rachel kept looking back. The silence stretched. "You're strange," he finally said. "Thank you?" "That wasn't a compliment. I choose to interpret it as one." Julian shook his head, but there was a smile there. Small, almost invisible. "If I find out you're behind this, are you going to fire me?" "No." He looked at the drawing on the wall. "I think I'll thank you." And he left the room, leaving Rachel alone with the cart and her heart beating too fast. That afternoon, she saw Julian leave early. For the first time in months, according to Brenda, he took Lily out for ice cream, and when they came back, the girl was laughing. Really laughing. Rachel kept that image like a treasure. But what she didn't see was Julian stopping at the elevator door and looking back, searching for her. Julian Westbrook was running away from a meeting. It wasn't his proudest moment, but the financial director had started talking about integrated process synergy for the 15th consecutive minute, and he simply couldn't take it anymore. "I need to go to the bathroom," he lied, getting up from his chair. "Now?" Victoria Ashford raised a perfectly drawn eyebrow. "Emergency. But we're in the middle of the fourth quarter projection." "Emergency, Victoria." He left before she could protest. The problem was that the bathroom was right next to the meeting room, and Victoria would definitely notice if he didn't go in there. So Julian did the only logical thing. He went down 2 floors using the emergency stairs. Nobody used the emergency stairs. 12 elevators. Modern building. The stairs were basically decoration with a handrail. Or at least that's what he thought. When he opened the door to the 28th floor, Julian stopped. There was someone there. Sitting on the step with a notebook on her lap and her lips moving silently was Rachel Holloway, the cleaning lady, the woman who had saved his $50 million contract, the woman he had rewarded with an envelope and an awkward handshake. She didn't see him. She was too focused, eyes fixed on the pages, fingers following the lines, mouth forming words Julian couldn't hear from there. He should have left, should have gone back to the meeting, should have pretended he didn't see anything. But he couldn't. Instead, Julian stood at the half-open door, watching. Rachel muttered something in Italian, then repeated it, then wrote something in the notebook. Her handwriting was small and precise, methodical, like someone who had learned to make the most of every inch of paper. She turned the page. The notebook was thick, worn, full of notes. It wasn't the notebook of someone who studied as a hobby. It was the notebook of someone who studied as if their life depended on it. Julian felt something strange in his chest. $5,000. That's what he had given her. $5,000 in $100 bills, stuffed in a white envelope, delivered with an awkward thank you and a "you can go back to work" that now sounded cruel. He had treated her talent like a tip, as if speaking fluent Italian, saving $1 million contract, and maintaining composure under pressure were something you paid for in cash and forgot about the next day. Rachel kept studying, oblivious to everything, oblivious to him, oblivious to the fact that the company's CEO was standing like an embarrassed spy less than 5 meters from her. Julian looked at his own hands, hands that signed contracts, that closed deals, that moved millions of dollars with a pen, and that hadn't been able to offer a single real opportunity to the woman who had saved the most important business of the year. Why? Because she didn't have a degree? Because she wore a gray uniform? Because she pushed a cleaning cart instead of carrying an executive briefcase? Julian thought about Lily, about the daughter who drew enormous buildings with small people, about the daughter he barely saw because he was too busy being important. Rachel had seen Lily, had noticed the drawings, had left colored pencils and little notes that made the girl smile for the first time in months. The cleaning lady had seen more than the CEO. That hurt. Rachel closed the notebook and sighed. For a second, Julian thought she was going to get up and see him there. But she just stretched her back, looked at the ceiling, and muttered something to herself. She looked tired. She looked determined. She looked like someone who had dreams too big for the space the world allowed her to occupy. Julian stepped back slowly. The door closed with a soft click. He stood in the hallway, his heart beating faster than it should. $5,000. Was that what she was worth to him? To the company? To the world? No, she was worth more. Much more. And he had been too much of a coward to admit it. Julian went back to the elevator, went up to the 32nd floor, ignored Victoria, who was waiting for him at the meeting room door with an irritated expression. Was the emergency resolved? She asked sarcastically. It was, Julian replied, without stopping. Where are you going? To resolve another emergency. He entered his own office, closed the door, sat in the executive chair. The computer glowed in front of him. The cursor blinked on the screen. Julian opened the corporate email. Recipient, Rachel Holloway. He typed, deleted, typed again, deleted again. What to say? Sorry for being a complete jerk. You deserved more than an envelope. I saw you studying on the stairs and realized I'm a terrible judge of character. Nothing seemed right, but something needed to be said. Julian took a deep breath and started typing. Rachel, we need to talk. Not about cleaning, not about translation, about you. Tomorrow at 8 a.m. in my office, Julian Westbrook. He reread it 3 times, 4, 5. Then, before he could change his mind, he clicked send. The email disappeared from the screen. Julian leaned back in his chair and looked at Lily's drawing on the wall. The drawing that said me and Daddy in colorful letters. He had been blind for too long. With Lily, with Rachel, with everything that really mattered. But maybe, just maybe, there was still time to fix it. On the emergency stairs, 2 floors below, Rachel put away the notebook in the cart and went back to work. Not knowing that everything was about to change, Rachel read the email 47 times. She counted. There was nothing else to do at 3 a.m. besides stare at the old computer screen and panic silently. We need to talk. 4 words. 4 words that could mean anything. Promotion. Firing. Lawsuit for hiding his phone in the supply drawer. Anything. She didn't sleep. At 6 a.m, she was in the tiny bathroom of the apartment, looking at her own reflection in the stained mirror. Good morning, Mr. Westbrook, she rehearsed. I received your email and, no, too formal. Hi, Julian. How are you? No, too informal. And since when did she call him Julian? Mr. Westbrook, before you say anything, I can explain about the clock and the phone and Lily's drawings and… No, that was basically a confession. Rachel rubbed her face with her hands. Okay, breathe. You faced an Italian billionaire on the phone. You can face an American CEO in person. The reflection in the mirror didn't look convinced. At 8 o'clock sharp, Rachel was standing in front of Julian's office, her heart beating so hard she was sure Brenda could hear it from the reception desk. Are you going to go in, or are you going to take root there? Brenda asked, without looking up from the computer. I'm mentally preparing myself. He doesn't bite. Are you sure? Brenda finally looked at her. Rachel, he spent the entire week asking about you, about your schedule, about how long you've worked here, about whether you're happy. She went back to typing. The man is obsessed, and not in the bad way. Rachel swallowed hard. Is that supposed to calm me down? It should. Now go in before I push you. Rachel knocked on the door. Come in, Julian's voice answered. She entered. The office looked different. Or maybe Rachel was looking with different eyes. Lily's drawing was still on the wall behind the desk. Me and Daddy, in colorful letters. But now there was another drawing next to it. More recent. A mermaid with robot legs. Julian was standing near the window, looking at the city below. When Rachel entered, he turned around. Thank you for coming. You sent an email saying we need to talk. That's not exactly something you ignore. A minimal smile crossed his face. Please sit down. Rachel sat in the same leather chair from weeks ago, the $5,000 chair. The chair that now seemed to belong to another life. Julian didn't sit behind the desk. Instead, he pulled up a chair and sat in front of her. Close, as if they were equals. I saw you yesterday, he said. Rachel froze. You saw me? On the emergency stairs, studying. Her heart sank. Mr. Westbrook, I can explain. It was my break time. I wasn't. Rachel, she stopped. I'm not angry, Julian said. I'm impressed. Silence. What? She managed to say. That notebook, how many pages does it have? 347. You did it by yourself? Yes. No course? No teacher? No one helping you? Yes. Julian shook his head slowly. Why didn't you ever tell me? Rachel almost laughed. Tell what, sir? That the cleaning lady dreams of being a translator? That I spend my nights studying something I'll never be able to use? That I have an invisible diploma that's worthless because it doesn't have a university stamp? Her voice trembled at the end. She didn't want it to tremble, but it did. Julian was silent, looking at her, waiting. I always wanted more, Rachel continued, the words coming out before she could stop them. Ever since I was a child, but my family didn't have money for college, barely had money for food, so I worked, cleaned houses, offices, buildings, and every night when I got home, I studied, because it was the only thing no one could take from me. She took a deep breath. I never asked for a chance, because I learned that people like me don't get chances. We get tips, envelopes, pats on the back, and "Thank you very much, you can go back to your work." The silence that followed was heavy. Julian didn't look away. "I was one of those pats on the back," he said. "Wasn't I?" Rachel didn't answer. She didn't need to. $5,000, Julian continued. "That's what I thought you were worth. $5,000 and a white envelope. It was more than most would give. It was less than you deserved." He stood up, went to the desk, picked up a folder. "I have a proposal for you, Rachel." She felt her stomach churn. "Proposal? The company is creating a new department, international relations. We need someone who speaks languages, who understands cultures, who knows how to negotiate with foreign clients." Rachel blinked. "Are you?" "I'm offering you the position of International Relations Assistant." Julian opened the folder and placed it in front of her. "Competitive salary, full benefits, and one more thing." Rachel looked at the papers. Numbers, terms, things she never imagined seeing with her own name. "What else?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "The company will pay for your specialization, a translation and interpretation course, recognized certification." Julian looked her in the eyes. "You're going to have the diploma you always deserved, Rachel, and no one will ever be able to say you're not qualified again." Rachel stood still, without words, without air, not knowing if she was awake or if she had fallen asleep on the subway and was dreaming. "Why are you doing this?" she finally asked. Julian looked at Lily's drawings on the wall. "Because you taught me to see what was right in front of me." He looked back at her. "Now it's my turn to do the same for you." Rachel accepts Julian's proposal, not imagining what would come next. Brenda came in, pale as paper. "Mr. Westbrook, we have a problem, the Benedetti contract. They discovered an error. The Italian is furious. And he's threatening to cancel everything." Rachel was still in her gray uniform when chaos found her. She didn't even have time to process that she had just accepted Julian's proposal. No time to breathe, to celebrate, to call someone and shout, "I did it." Brenda came into the office talking about contract, error, furious billionaire, and suddenly Rachel was running down the hallway in zero heels and a cleaning uniform. Life was like that. You win the lottery and immediately trip on the curb. When she arrived at the conference room, the scene was one of pure corporate desperation. The same 15 executives from weeks ago were there. But this time, nobody was smiling. The man with caterpillar eyebrows was so pale he looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Victoria Ashford, the woman with "Are you the receptionist?" had her lipstick smudged from biting her lips so much. And in the center of the table, the speakerphone was spitting out furious Italian. Marco Benedetti was yelling, not yelling politely like American executives do, really yelling. Yelling like only a 72-year-old Italian can yell when he feels cheated. "What is he saying?" Victoria asked, desperate. "We don't know," the man with eyebrows responded. "Nobody here speaks Italian. Use the phone app." "I already tried." The app translated contractual clause as Santa Claus. "What do you mean, Santa Claus?" "I don't know. Technology is a mystery." Rachel stopped at the door, breathless. 15 heads turned toward her. 15 expressions went from desperation to confusion to something she knew well. "Hope." "You," Victoria pointed. "The woman who speaks Italian." "Rachel," she corrected. "My name is Rachel." "Whatever. Can you translate?" Rachel looked at Julian, who had just entered behind her. He nodded. "She can," he said. "She can." Rachel walked to the phone. Her gray uniform seemed even more out of place among the suits and tailored outfits, but she didn't care. Not anymore. "Mr. Benedetti," she said in Italian, her voice calm. "This is Rachel Holloway. We spoke a few weeks ago. Do you remember me?" The yelling stopped. The silence that followed was almost deafening. "The woman from the phone," Benedetti said, his voice still irritated but less furious. "The only competent person in that entire company." "Thank you, sir. Can you explain the problem to me?" "The problem? The problem." He started yelling again, but now in a tone Rachel could manage. "Your contract says I have to deliver the products in 15 days. 15. We agreed on 90. Rachel closed her eyes. 15. 90. In Italian, 15 and 90. Richardson, the official translator, had confused the two. He was probably feverish, delirious, and thought he was doing a good job. He wasn't. "Mr. Benedetti, there was a translation error," Rachel said, staying calm. "The company takes full responsibility. The correct terms are 90 days as we agreed. I can send a corrected version in 2 hours. 2 hours? An hour and a half. Silence. Will you review it yourself? Word by word, sir. And if there's another error? There won't be. Benedetti was quiet for a moment. Rachel could feel 15 pairs of eyes burning her back. You have courage, young lady, he finally said. I like people with courage. An hour and a half, not a second more. Thank you, sir. The line went silent. Rachel let out the breath she'd been holding, and then the room exploded. She saved the contract. Again. Someone get water, coffee, whatever she wants. Victoria approached, stumbling over her own words. Rachel, that day in the break room when I confused you. With the receptionist? Rachel completed. Yes, I'm sorry. Rachel looked at her for a moment. It's okay, Victoria, but next time maybe pay attention to the uniform before asking someone to call your manicurist. Victoria nodded, red as a tomato in a blue suit. Julian moved to the center of the room. Everyone fell silent. Before you go back to your desks, he said, his voice firm, I have an announcement. The executives exchanged looks. Julian looked at Rachel. She felt her heart race. As of today, Rachel Holloway is no longer an employee of the cleaning staff. Murmurs. Confused looks. She has accepted the position of International Relations Assistant, Julian continued. She will work directly with me on all negotiations with foreign clients. Additionally, the company will sponsor her specialization in translation and interpretation. The silence that followed was different from all the others. It was the silence of 15 people realizing they had underestimated someone. The silence of collective embarrassment. The silence of those who had laughed and were now swallowing the laughter back. Brenda, Julian called. Yes, sir? Arrange appropriate clothing for Miss Holloway and a new badge with the correct title. Yes, sir? Julian turned to Rachel. Any objections? Rachel looked at her own gray uniform, at the disinfectant stains, at the hands that had held mops for 4 years. None, she said, but I'll miss the cart. Julian smiled, a real smile. We can put one in your office if you want. Office? Of course. You thought you were going to work in the hallway? The executives watched in silence. Victoria looked like she wanted to disappear. The man with eyebrows had an expression that suggested he was re-evaluating his entire life. Rachel looked around. The cleaning lady nobody saw was now at the center of everything, and this time nobody was laughing. Then the conference room door opened. Lily Westbrook appeared, the drawing notebook under her arm, her enormous eyes looking for someone. Dad, Brenda said that, Rachel? She stopped, looked at Rachel in the center of the room, looked at the executives around, looked at her father. What's happening? Julian knelt in front of his daughter. Rachel is going to work with Daddy now, sweetie. She won't clean the office anymore. She's going to have her own office. Lily's eyes widened. She's going to stay here? Forever? Forever is a long time, Rachel said, smiling. But for a good while, yes. Lily said nothing, just ran and hugged Rachel with all the strength her 7-year-old arms could muster. I knew it, she whispered. I knew you were special. Rachel felt her eyes burn. 15 executives watched in silence. Julian watched with something in his look that Rachel couldn't name. And there, in the middle of that conference room, still in her gray uniform, hugged by a little girl who drew small people in enormous buildings, Rachel finally understood. She was no longer invisible. And she never would be again. Rachel barely recognized herself in the mirror. The brown hair, always tied in a tight bun, now fell loose over her shoulders in soft waves. The makeup was light, just enough to highlight the honey-colored eyes her mother always said were her greatest treasure. The navy blue blazer hugged her silhouette as if it had been custom-made. The dress pants, the low-heeled shoes, elegant but comfortable. She spun once in front of the mirror in the tiny Brooklyn apartment. This is me, she whispered. This is me now. And for the first time she believed it. The subway was crowded as always, but Rachel didn't mind. She kept her head up, shoulders back. When she arrived at the Westbrook & Associates lobby, the security guard who had seen her for 4 years without ever greeting her nodded. Good morning, miss. Rachel almost stumbled. Miss. Good morning, she responded, hiding her smile. On the 32nd floor, Brenda was waiting for her with a cup of coffee and a conspiratorial smile. Look who arrived looking amazing. She handed over the coffee. If I didn't know you, I'd think you were born in that blazer. I feel strange. Strange beautiful, there's a difference. Brenda picked up a folder from the desk. Oh, and before I forget, your course enrollment was confirmed. Starts next week, Mondays and Wednesdays, 7 to 10 at night. Specialization in translation and interpretation at New York University. Rachel felt her heart race. It's already confirmed? Super confirmed. Mr. Westbrook made sure to expedite everything personally. Brenda winked. He seems very interested in your education. Brenda. What? I didn't say anything. Rachel rolled her eyes and walked to her office. The nameplate on the door still made her stop for a second. Rachel Holloway, International Relations Assistant. Gold letters on a black background. Her name, her title, her achievement. She went in and smiled at the succulent in the corner. Good morning, little plant. Did you survive the weekend? The succulent didn't answer, but looked fine. Rachel needed more coffee. Brenda's had run out on the way, so she went to the executive break room, determined to master the monstrous coffee maker this time. Third button from the left, she muttered, remembering the tip. Double espresso. Easy. She pressed the button. The machine made a noise. Normal. Another noise. Still normal. And then it started shaking. No, no, no. The coffee came out. Kept coming out. Ugh. Overflowed. Ran down the counter, formed a brown waterfall toward the floor. Which is the stop button? Red one in the middle, someone shouted from the door. Rachel pressed it. The machine stopped, but the break room looked like it had survived a caffeine flood. She turned around. It was Henderson, the executive who had almost ordered pizza in Italian weeks ago. That happens to everyone, he said, clearly lying. Thanks for the solidarity. You're welcome. Welcome to the team. He left, and Rachel spent 15 minutes cleaning coffee from the floor, in her new blazer, on her knees. Some things really didn't change. When she returned to the office, she found a visitor. Lily was in the swivel chair, spinning in circles. Hi, you look very pretty today. Thank you, Lily. You too. I know. The girl stopped spinning. I brought something. She held out a folded paper. Rachel opened it. It was a drawing, a room with a desk, chair, window, a brown-haired woman in the center smiling, and underneath in colorful letters, Rachel's house. For the opening, Lily explained. Now you have a house here. Like me. Rachel felt her eyes burn. It's the most beautiful gift I've ever received. I know. Lily smiled. Put it on the wall. Rachel taped the drawing next to the window. She was admiring it when she heard the voice in the hallway. Honestly, I don't understand what got into Julian. Victoria Ashford. Loud tone. Venomous. Taking someone from cleaning and putting them in an office? You can change the clothes, but the origin doesn't change. Rachel froze. People like that don't belong here, Victoria continued. It's just a matter of time until... Victoria. Julian's voice cut through the air like a razor. Mr. Westbrook, I heard. And I'll say this once. Rachel is here because she has talent. Because she saved a contract that no one in this company could have saved. If I hear one more comment like that, we're going to have a very different conversation. Are we clear? Yes, sir. Hurried footsteps walking away. Rachel let out the breath she'd been holding. A minute later, Julian appeared at the door. You heard, he said. I did. Thank you for. He stopped, in the middle of the sentence, in the middle of the movement, as if he had hit an invisible wall. Rachel frowned. Mr. Westbrook, is everything okay? Julian blinked, opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. You look different. It's the new blazer. It's not the blazer. He swallowed hard. Your eyes, have they always been that color? That color? They look like honey. The words came out before he could stop them. In the sun. Honey in the sun. Silence. Julian turned red. Visibly red. The CEO of Westbrook & Associates, the man who negotiated million-dollar contracts without blinking, was blushing like a teenager. I meant, it's just, the light is. He ran his hand through his hair. Are you free for dinner tonight? Rachel blinked. Dinner? To discuss the course, the details, schedules, logistics. He was talking too fast. Purely professional. Purely professional. Exactly. Rachel hid her smile. Of course, Mr. Westbrook. What time? 8. I'll come by. To your office to pick you up for dinner. Professional. Sounds good. Julian nodded, tapped the doorframe for no apparent reason, and left, walking too fast for someone who wasn't running away. 5 seconds later, Brenda appeared. Discuss the courses? She made air quotes. Sure. Purely professional. Uh-huh. Brenda. What? I didn't say anything. She smiled. But if I were you, I'd reapply my lipstick before 8. Rachel looked at her reflection in the window. Hair down, honey-colored eyes, a smile she couldn't contain, and a dinner at 8 with the man who had just compared her eyes to honey in the sun. Purely professional. Sure. At 7:53, Julian Westbrook appeared at Rachel's office door with a bouquet of flowers and the face of someone about to faint. "They're for you," he said, extending the flowers. "For dinner. Professional." Rachel looked at the yellow roses. Professional flowers? Completely professional. He cleared his throat. It's a custom, in some countries, giving flowers at business meetings. In which countries? Julian opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I didn't research before coming. Rachel took the flowers, hiding her smile. Thank you, Mr. Westbrook. They're beautiful. Julian, what? Call me Julian, at least during dinner. He adjusted his tie for the third time in 30 seconds. It's strange to discuss course logistics with someone who calls me sir. Okay, Julian. The name sounded different coming from her, more intimate, more real. Julian turned red again. Shall we? The restaurant was on the Upper East Side. Italian, of course. So you can practice? Julian had said in the car. But the real reason was written all over his face every time Rachel spoke any word in Italian to the waiter. He was mesmerized. Good evening, Rachel said to the waiter in perfect Italian. Table for 2, please. Julian stumbled over an empty chair. Careful, Rachel said, holding his arm. I saw the chair. You clearly didn't. I did. I just decided to ignore it. The waiter, a real Italian with a gray mustache and sharp eyes, watched the scene with a discreet smile. This way, please. The most romantic table in the restaurant. It doesn't need to be romantic, Julian said quickly. It's a business dinner. The waiter looked at the flowers in Rachel's hand, then at Julian, then at the flowers again. Of course, sir, business. He led them to a corner table with candles, a city view, and a bottle of wine already waiting. I didn't order wine, Julian muttered. Courtesy of the house, the waiter said, for business. And he left, leaving the two alone. Julian picked up the menu, dropped the menu, picked it up again. You're nervous, Rachel observed. I don't get nervous. You dropped the menu? It slipped? From your hand? It was a slippery menu. Rachel laughed, a real laugh loud that made other tables look. Sorry, she said, covering her mouth. It's just that you're so different here. Different how? Human, she tilted her head. In the office, you're the CEO. All control, all authority. Here you seem normal. Is that a compliment or criticism? Compliment. Definitely a compliment. Dinner flowed better after that. The wine helped. The food helped more. But what really changed everything was the conversation. Julian told her about Lily's mother, how she had left when the girl was 3 years old, how he had thrown all his time into work so he wouldn't have to think, how he had almost lost his daughter trying to forget his wife. Rachel told him about her childhood, about the mother who worked 3 jobs, about never having money for college, about learning Italian in secret at dawn, dreaming of a life that seemed impossible. You were never taken to dinner like this? Julian asked, surprised. Rachel shook her head. My previous dates were burger and movies, if that. That's normal. For people like me, it's normal. Julian was silent for a moment. You deserved more, he finally said. You always did. Rachel felt her eyes burn. Thank you. It's the truth. They looked at each other for a second too long, the kind of look that says things words can't. The waiter appeared with dessert. Tiramisu, he announced. Perfect for business. Julian laughed. Rachel laughed too. At 11 at night, he drove her home. The car stopped in front of the building in Brooklyn, 3 floors without an elevator, peeling walls, everything Rachel could afford with her old salary. This is my palace, she said, trying to joke. Julian didn't laugh. Can I walk you to your door? It's 3 flights of stairs. I can handle it. They climbed in silence. The 3rd-floor hallway smelled of the neighbors cooking and had a flickering light. Rachel stopped in front of apartment 3B. Well, she said, thanks for dinner, professional. You're welcome. It was very professional. Silence. They both stood there, not knowing what to do with their hands, not knowing what to do with the minimal space between them. Rachel, Julian said, his voice lower now. Yes? He took a step forward. She didn't step back. His eyes went to her lips, then to her eyes, then to her lips again. The air grew heavy. Julian raised his hand, touched her face, slowly, as if she were made of something precious. Your eyes, he whispered. Honey in the sun. Rachel forgot how to breathe. He leaned in, she closed her eyes, and then Julian stopped, inches from her mouth, so close she could feel the heat. I don't want to ruin this, he whispered. Ruin what? Us. He swallowed hard. I want to do this right. You deserve for this to be done right. Rachel opened her eyes. Julian was still there. So close, so present. Okay, she said, her voice weak. Okay? Okay. He pulled away slowly, as if it hurt. Good night, Rachel. Good night, Julian. He went down the stairs. She stood at the door, her heart beating too hard. When she entered the apartment, she leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. The flowers were still in her hand, and the ghost of a kiss that didn't happen still burned on her lips. In her pocket, her cell phone vibrated. A message from Julian. Next dinner won't be professional, I promise. Rachel smiled at the ceiling, and knew in that moment that her life would never be the same again. 3 weeks after the dinner that wasn't professional, Rachel Holloway discovered a universal truth. 7-year-old children are incapable of keeping secrets, and Lily Westbrook was especially talented at exposing inconvenient truths. Why do you and my dad keep looking at each other like that? She asked in the middle of the executive hallway, loud enough for 3 assistants to hear. Rachel choked on her coffee. Like what, Lily? Like this. The girl widened her eyes, made a silly smile, and sighed dramatically. Like in the movies, when people are going to get married. We're not. Nobody is. Rachel looked around, desperate. Where's your dad? In the meeting. But he asked me to wait with you. Lily smiled. I think he likes you. Lily likes you a lot, like dogs like food. One of the assistants laughed. Rachel wanted to disappear, but the truth was that the last few weeks had been different. The specialization course had started. Mondays and Wednesdays, 7 to 10 at night, on the New York University campus. Rachel arrived tired but fulfilled. The professors praised her. Classmates asked her for help with translations, and every night, when she left class, there was a message from Julian waiting. How was it today? Have they realized yet that you're the best in the class? Lily wants to know if you can have dinner with us Saturday. The dinners had become routine. First they were professional, then semi-professional, then simply dinners, the 3 of them together, Julian, Rachel, and Lily, like a family that didn't have a name yet. And in the office things had changed too. Looks that lasted a second longer, smiles hidden behind coffee cups, hands that touched by accident when reaching for the same document. Everyone had noticed. Nobody commented. Until that Tuesday. Rachel. Lily appeared at the office door holding her drawing notebook. Come have lunch with us. Lily, I brought my lunch. Dad did too, but he said he prefers to eat in the break room with you. She tilted her head. Please? How do you say no to those eyes? Rachel couldn't. The executive break room was busy at 12:30. Tables occupied, conversations in low tones. And in the corner, Julian Westbrook waiting with 2 lunch boxes and a bouncing daughter. Hi, he said when Rachel arrived. Hi, she replied. Lily rolled her eyes. You guys are weird. The 3 sat down. Lily in the middle, as always. Rachel on one side, Julian on the other. Dad, will you open my lunchbox? Lily asked. Of course, sweetie. Rachel, can you cut my meat? I can. Lily smiled, satisfied. You guys look like my parents. Rachel dropped her fork. Julian choked on his water. Lily, he said, his voice strangled. We're not. I know you're not married yet. The girl shrugged. But you act the same, like my friend's parents. Minus the divorce. You're not going to divorce, right? We're not even married, Rachel said, her face on fire. But are you going to get married? Lily. What? I just want to know. She crossed her arms. Tommy from my school said that when adults have dinner together every week, it's because they're going to get married. And you have dinner together every week. Around them, the conversations had quieted. People were looking, pretending not to look, looking again. Victoria Ashford was 2 tables away, her eyes fixed on the 3 of them. Rachel wanted to hide under the table, but then something happened. Julian, instead of changing the subject, instead of pretending he hadn't heard, instead of doing what any CEO would do to protect his reputation, he took Rachel's hand, over the table in front of everyone, where everyone could see. His fingers intertwined with hers, firm, warm, decided. A small gesture that said everything. I choose you. Rachel looked at him. He looked back, and smiled. You know, Lily, Julian said, still holding Rachel's hand, Tommy from your school is pretty smart. Rachel's eyes widened. Julian, but marriage is a serious thing. It needs time. It needs certainty. He squeezed her hand, and it needs both people to want it. Lily looked from one to the other. Do you want to? Silence. The kind of silence that changes everything. Julian looked at Rachel. His eyes asked a question his lips didn't yet have the courage to ask. I do, he said softly. When you're ready, if you want to. Rachel felt her heart race. Around them, the entire break room was watching. Victoria had her mouth open. Brenda, who had appeared from who knows where, was holding her phone as if filming. And for the first time in her life, Rachel didn't care. Didn't care about the looks, about the judgments, about what people thought or didn't think. Because Julian Westbrook, CEO of Westbrook & Associates, was holding her hand. In public. In front of everyone. Choosing her. I do too, Rachel whispered. Lily let out a scream. I knew it. I knew it. She jumped from the chair. Brenda, did you see? They're going to get married. Lily. Julian tried to calm her. We didn't say that. But it's practically the same thing. The entire break room was watching now. There was no more hiding it. Victoria got up and left, her face red with something that wasn't shame. Brenda gave a thumbs up from afar, and Rachel, still holding Julian's hand, started to laugh. That wasn't exactly discreet, she said. It wasn't. Julian agreed. Do I regret it? I don't know. Do you? He looked at her, at Lily, at their intertwined hands. Not at all. And there in the executive break room at Westbrook & Associates, with a 7-year-old celebrating and an entire office watching, Rachel realized something. She was no longer invisible, and she never would be again. That night, as she was leaving the office, Julian caught up with her in the hallway. Tomorrow, he said, dinner at my house, just the three of us. Sounds good. He leaned in, kissed her forehead, soft, quick. Rachel arrived at Julian's office at 6 in the evening for the planned dinner. What she saw left her speechless. The door was half open. Strange sounds were coming from inside. Laughter, real laughter, loud, uncontrolled. The kind of sound that didn't match the 32nd floor of Westbrook & Associates. She approached slowly, peeked through the crack, and her heart melted. Julian Westbrook, CEO of a billion-dollar company, was sitting on the floor of his own office, in a suit, with a tie, with his legs crossed like a child. In front of him, spread across the imported carpet, a 1,000-piece puzzle. Lily was beside him, holding a blue piece and looking at her father with an expression of disapproval. Dad, that piece doesn't go there. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. It's the sky. You're putting it in the ocean. Sky and ocean are both blue. But they're different blues. Lily rolled her eyes with veteran actress drama. You're really bad at this. I run an entire company. And you don't know how to put together a puzzle. They're different skills. Skills you don't have. Julian tossed a piece at her. Gently. She laughed and threw it back. His cell phone was on the desk, forgotten. The screen black. No notifications flashing, no urgent emails, no calls interrupting. For the first time in years, the phone didn't matter. Hey, Lily noticed Rachel at the door. Rachel, come see. Dad is terrible. I'm not terrible, Julian protested, standing up and adjusting his suit. Yes, you are. Look at this dog he drew. Lily picked up a paper from the floor. It looks like a potato with legs. Rachel looked at the drawing. It really was hard to identify. Is it a dog? She asked, holding back laughter. It was supposed to be, Julian said, defensive. The snout came out a little. Non-existent, Lily completed. Creative. Non-existent. Rachel couldn't hold it. She laughed out loud. Julian looked at her with something warm in his gaze. Ready for dinner? He asked. Ready. Lily jumped. I helped choose the menu. That worries me, Rachel joked. It's only dessert. Lily. Kidding. There's real food too, but lots of dessert. The three left together. In the elevator, Lily held Rachel's hand on one side and her father's on the other. You look like my parents, she said, satisfied. Julian and Rachel exchanged a look. Neither of them corrected her. Julian's house was on the Upper West Side, a penthouse apartment with a view of Central Park. But it wasn't the size that impressed Rachel when she entered. It was the warmth. Candles lit on the dining table, fresh flowers in the center, soft music playing in the background, and the smell of home-cooked food, not from a hired chef, but from someone who had actually cooked. You did all this? Rachel asked, surprised. With help, Julian admitted. I helped, Lily shouted from the kitchen. I put out the candles. She almost set the curtain on fire, Julian whispered. I heard that. Dinner was perfect. Not perfect in the elegant restaurant sense. Perfect in the real sense, in the true sense, of three people who liked being together. Lily talked about school. About Tommy, who thought he knew everything about marriages. About the teacher who had praised her drawings. She said, I have talent, the girl announced, proud. You do, Rachel confirmed. More than Dad? Much more than Dad. Hey, Julian protested. The potato with legs is there as proof. Rachel pointed to the drawing Lily had brought and stuck on the refrigerator. Julian pretended to be offended, but his eyes were smiling. After dinner, the three watched a movie in the living room. Lily chose an animated film about a princess who saved herself. Like Rachel, Lily murmured in the middle of the movie. What do you mean? Rachel asked. The princess. She didn't wait for anyone to save her. She saved herself. Lily yawned. You too. You saved yourself. And you saved us too. Rachel felt her eyes burn. 20 minutes later, Lily fell asleep. Wrapped in a blanket on the couch, her head on Rachel's lap, her drawing notebook hugged against her chest. Julian carried her to the bedroom. Came back minutes later, his steps soft. Out in 2 seconds, he said, sitting next to Rachel. The apartment was silent now. Just the city lights coming through the window. Manhattan shining like a sea of stars. Thank you, Julian said, breaking the silence. For what? For being here. For her. For everything. Rachel turned to look at him. Julian, I was a disaster, Rachel. He ran his hand through his hair. I thought working 70 hours a week was being a good father, that giving her everything she wanted was enough, that she didn't need me, just what I could buy. You didn't know. I did know. He interrupted her. Deep down, I knew, but it was easier to ignore, easier to pretend she was fine, that I was fine. Silence. You saved me, he continued. Not just the company, not just the contract. You saved me from myself. You gave me back my daughter. You reminded me why anything matters. Rachel felt her heart beating hard. He was close, too close, close enough for her to feel his warmth, his cologne. Rachel, yes, I'm going to kiss you now. It wasn't a question, and before she could respond, his lips met hers. The kiss was soft at first, gentle, as if he were asking permission even after having already started. Then it changed. It became more intense, more real. His hands on her face, her hands on his shirt, all the tension of the last few weeks transforming into something beautiful. When they separated, they were both breathless. That was, Rachel began. Necessary, Julian completed. I was going to say perfect. He smiled, the most beautiful smile she had ever seen. I'm not playing around, he said, holding her hands. This isn't a fling. I want you in my life, in Lily's life, forever. Rachel looked at him, at the bedroom door where Lily slept, at the city shining outside. I want that too, she whispered. Julian kissed her again. And there, in that apartment full of candles and too much dessert, Rachel knew she had found what she had always been looking for. A family. In the bedroom, without them knowing, Lily smiled in her sleep. She had already planned everything. Now all that was missing was the ring. 6 months later, Rachel Holloway walked up on stage to receive a piece of paper that changed everything. The New York University auditorium was packed. Families, friends, cameras, flowers. And somewhere in the 5th row, a 7-year-old girl was holding a sign that could be seen from space. Go Rachel! The best translator in the world, and the prettiest. Lily had insisted on making it herself. With glitter. Lots of glitter. The kind of glitter that would never come out of Julian's clothes, no matter how many times they were washed. Rachel Holloway, the dean announced. Certification in translation and interpretation, with honors. Rachel walked to the center of the stage. Her legs trembled a little, her heart beat too hard. When she picked up the diploma, she heard a shout. That's my Rachel! Lily yelled, standing on her chair, waving the sign. She's amazing! The entire auditorium laughed. Sprate, Julian, next to his daughter, was trying to make her sit down, without success. He was red with embarrassment, but his eyes shone with pride. Rachel waved to them both, and cried. There, on the stage, holding the diploma she had dreamed of her entire life, she cried. Not from sadness, from something that had no name, from years of late nights studying, from notebooks hidden in cleaning carts, from closed doors and people who said she would never make it. She made it. After the ceremony, Lily ran to hug her. You were the best, the girl said, her arms tight around Rachel. Everyone clapped really hard for you. Thank you, sweetheart. And did you see my sign? Everyone saw your sign, Lily. I know. That was the plan. Julian approached, hugged Rachel over Lily, who was squished in the middle. I'm so proud of you, he whispered in her ear. Rachel closed her eyes, kept that moment. Now let's have dinner, Lily announced, pulling them both. Dad prepared everything. There are candles and flowers and Lily, Julian interrupted, nervous. Don't tell everything. Oh, right, sorry. She made an innocent face. There's nothing special. Normal dinner. Very normal. Super normal. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Why are you acting strange? Me? Strange? I'm not strange. You're strange. Lily walked away quickly. Let's go. Julian and Rachel exchanged a look. What is she up to? Rachel asked. No idea, Julian lied. Very badly, by the way. Julian's apartment was transformed. More candles than usual, more flowers, the table set with the special china he only used on important occasions, and in the center a cake that said, Congratulations, Rachel, in frosting letters. Lily chose the cake, Julian explained. I wanted to put more glitter, but Dad wouldn't let me. Lily complained. Glitter isn't edible, but it's pretty. Dinner was perfect. Laughter, stories, Lily telling about how she had almost dropped the sign on a lady's head in the front row. Was she angry? Rachel asked. At first, yes. But then she clapped for you too, I convinced her. How? I said you were my mom. Rachel choked on her wine. Julian turned red. Lily shrugged. What? It's almost true. After dinner, the three went to the living room. Lily was strangely agitated. She kept looking at her father, at Rachel, at her father again. Rachel, she said out of nowhere. Do you like rings? Rings? Yeah, rings like jewelry, on the finger. Do you like them? Lily, Julian warned. I'm just asking. It's a normal question. Rachel laughed. Yes, Lily, I like rings. Like a lot? Like would you wear one forever? Lily, Julian was almost having an attack. Okay, I'll stop. She crossed her arms, but only because you asked. Rachel looked from one to the other. Okay. You two are acting very strange. What's going on? Silence. Julian took a deep breath. Rachel, yes? He stood up, ran his hand through his hair, walked to the window, came back. I had a speech prepared. It was beautiful. Romantic. I rehearsed all week. He rehearsed with me, Lily added. He cried twice. Lily. What? It's true. Julian closed his eyes for a second, then looked at Rachel. I forgot everything I was going to say. That's okay, Rachel said, her heart racing. You don't need to. I do. He walked to her, stopped in front of her. 6 months ago, you were the woman who cleaned my office. The woman nobody saw. The woman I was too blind to see. Rachel felt her eyes burn. Today, you're the woman who saved my company, who saved my daughter, who saved me. His voice broke. You're the woman I love. Lily let out a little scream. Julian knelt down, took a small box from his pocket, opened it. A ring. Simple, elegant, with a stone that shone like honey in the sun. Rachel Holloway, he said, his hands trembling. Will you marry me? Rachel looked at him. At Lily, who was jumping on the couch, at the diploma that was in her purse, waiting to be framed, at the entire life she had built from nothing. The tears fell before she could stop them. Yes, she whispered. Yes? Julian repeated as if he couldn't believe it. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He put the ring on her finger, stood up, kissed her, and Lily, who couldn't wait any longer, jumped on top of them both. I knew it, she shouted. Can I be the flower girl, please? I already practiced throwing petals. You can be whatever you want, Rachel said, hugging the girl. Can I be the organizer too, Lily? And choose the cake? We'll talk about it. With glitter? Julian laughed. Rachel laughed. Lily laughed. And there, in that apartment full of candles and flowers and glitter that would never come out of the carpet, Rachel understood. She had started as the cleaning lady nobody saw. Now she was the center of a family nobody expected. The woman who saved the company. The woman who united father and daughter. The woman who said yes. And as Julian kissed her again, with Lily squished between them, complaining that they were crushing her, Rachel knew one thing. Everyone who laughed was left in shock. And she, who had been invisible for so long, finally shone. What did you think of Rachel's story? The cleaning lady everyone underestimated, but who proved that talent doesn't need a diploma to exist. It just needs someone brave enough to say, I can do this. Leave your opinion in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, what rating would you give this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more moving stories like this one. See you next time.